Are we completely overwhelmed by the amount of information that's available to us? Has it gotten to the point where we can't make a decision anymore? Hi, my name is Steve, and this is Awake with Steve, where I talk about things that keep me up at night, anxiety causing events in today's world, or books that I've read about the past. So today, what is causing a great deal of anxiety this morning is I'm thinking about, where do I actually get good information? That started with a request by my wife. We were talking over breakfast, and she asked, what are forever chemicals? And so I started going down, hit Google, start going down the list of things that are forever chemicals. Ran into an article and was reading through it. And there was a phrase that I did not immediately think about. I just kind of glossed over it. And that phrase was, no actual evidence exists, only correlative evidence. Didn't strike me at the time, but I was going down and reading the EPA press release on the latest regulations that they're instituting to regulate forever chemicals. And in there, they cited strong scientific evidence. And that's when the prior phrase hit me. It's a very, very familiar phrase if you followed the tobacco industry and their winding way from tobacco does absolutely no harm. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's healthy for you, to where they said, okay, yes. In a court of law, tobacco causes cancer. Therefore, we're going to pay billions of dollars to help pay for the medical costs and et cetera. But their famous phrase that they always came when they initially started the court cases was, that's just correlative evidence. There's just correlations. There's no actual proof that this causes this. And I went off. Poof. That's one of the problems, because then I was starting to go through, okay, where can I get some good information, some studies that actually, the studies that give me proof. And that got me into when it comes to human bodies and biology, complex biology of organisms, it's very, very difficult to do multiple tests, multiple experiments that come up with exactly the same results. You can get close sometimes, but you don't get exactly the same, which is a little bit different than a lot of earlier experiments in what I'll call the hard sciences, physics, chemistry, etc. In our textbooks in school, we have evidence, we have proof. Okay, you push this button, you get this result. And that's not happening so much these days. Even in physics, it's like, well, you get into quantum physics and it's all probability anyway. You push this button and who knows what's going to happen, but probably this will happen most of the time. And that kind of, got me into this idea of, maybe we're just getting too much information. And how do we sort through it? I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a way of evaluating it, and my mind takes off in a couple of different directions. One is, what's my experience? What do I know through my experience, through things that I've done, which works for a lot of things. In demographics, we watched the city of Detroit collapse in on itself. So we kind of know what happens when you shrink a population. But not everything works that way. So what's the next thing? Well, then I want to go to authorities. In the past, the authorities have been pretty much government studies. And now we're finding out that a lot of those government studies aren't conducted by the government. They're conducted by the companies that the government is studying, is looking at for regulation. Yeah, that doesn't always work so well. So I don't know. I'm reading more books. A couple of decades ago, I guess, struck upon the idea of chaos theory. And there are several books. I'm not going to link to provide any links at this point. I'd have to go back and really dig through some past readings to get links to them. But they talk a lot about how the world is the world system, the environment that we're in, is really more of a chaotic system. It's not a mechanical system. You push button A, you get result B. It's not what happens. It's so complex. It's got so many feedbacks that it's very, very difficult to make a definitive projection into the future. The butterfly effect, if you've probably heard about. Butterfly flaps and swings in China, hurricane in Florida. That's what kind of feedback mechanisms are involved here. Is just very, very small changes in a system can result in large changes further on in the system. And I've been reading a book now 5 times by Rethinking Science, Economics, and Diplomacy of Climate Change by Simon Sharp. And it's kind of reinforcing a point that a lot of what we're dealing with these days are complex systems. The human body is a complex system. The economy is a complex system. The universe is a complex system. And we've reached the point where we need to start thinking about things in those terms. And this is counter to most of our basic education, right through, I would say, for me, right through a fair amount of my college education. It's like you push this A button, you get B result. Ta-da! And this is all of science like that. And that's not the way it is anymore. We've gotten to the point where we can measure things so finely, and we're impacting the world so strongly that we have to think about the environment, the economy, the human body in terms of systems. And then when you're dealing with that, you don't really know what's going to happen when you push button A. You can say, well, if we do this, we should be heading off in that direction. So you do this, and then you see what happens. And if you like the result, you kind of keep pushing buttons until, hoping to push things in the same direction. And if it doesn't work that way, you kind of find a button D or C. Do something a little bit different to see how that works. It almost gets back to the time way in the past where the rocks had spirits and the animals had spirits, and the sun was a spirit and the moon was a spirit and everything was a spirit. And it's like, we're back to the point where you can't really, a lot of the systems that we're dealing with, can't really definitively say, if we do this, we're going to get that result. And that provides a lot of fodder for a lot of different interests. You've got the entrenched interests that don't want to change. You've got the aspiring interests that want to change everything to this. And you have some money interests over here who want to do something else to get the results they want out of it. And I suspect, I don't know, drives me nuts. As you can see, it gets me off into a spiral of all kinds of things that I can think about. So I'm going to take a long weekend here. Not going to produce any videos for the next 4 days and ponder how to approach this a little bit better and how I want this channel to evolve and what I'm trying to do with it. Because I'm finding more and more that, I go off in spirals and, I get deeper and deeper into uncertainty and anxiety that goes with it. And I think the bottom line is, to some extent, I need to learn to live with uncertainty in the things that I read about and that I'm interested in. Day-to-day life, much less uncertainty. You go in, you do your job, you do it well, you don't get fired. So, but when it comes to the trends and today's events, there's a lot more uncertainty than I've been comfortable with in the past. And so I want to think about that a little bit and see how that would direct this channel. So till Tuesday, which will be the day after Memorial Day, see ya. Have fun.